Hello, welcome back to another Azure Centric Podcast on our Azure weekly updates. My name is Marcos Nogueira, and with me I have this beautiful face, this beautiful fella, Ton, and everything else calls Andrew Lowes. How are you, my friend?
I'm very
Oh,
good,
you
thank
just
you.
enlighten yourself.
I just realized I did not have the light turned on. I was fooled by the sunshine being out still, so
Okay, you look like Ton. It's like you look good, my friend.
I have been spending a little bit of time in the sun.
Okay.
Well, with the sun out until like 10:30 at night, that really helps. So,
Yes. True, completely true. But yeah, it's been a kind of like you say, easygoing week. This week it's not one of the most busiest in Azure. We have to say, right? There is a very exciting update that we will cover in a few moments with some new stuff that is available and the growing of Azure, the
mhm.
updating of Azure. But I think it's more like um, a very generic one, very there is not a topic that we per se. I think we will cover the majority of Azure this week, which is not bad. Um, but yeah, it's been in preparation for um, I think for next week or the coming weeks for the summer that everyone is doing. So Azure doesn't stop. We don't stop. Doesn't matter. So you guys, just for you to know, we probably will change a little bit of scenery, at least on the background, because it's coming the vacations. We will not
Yeah,
stop the podcast, but we will come with a different background, right?
absolutely. I think as things open up, I think we'll both be a little bit more mobile. And you never know, we might actually be able to maybe do an in-person podcast together.
We never
And
know. We never know. And yeah, we can basically, and now this is a very geek joke. We can basically kind of disaster recover to another location or
Ooh,
be able to fail over to another location.
that's right. I like that one actually. See that's all about business continuity, isn't it?
Exactly. It's like deployment of the cloud. We can be deployed on anyone else, like on the beach, for example, on the mountains, whatever it
Well,
is. We don't need to be inside all the time, and
that's
that's the
true.
part that I want to say. But before we go into the updates, I want to thank you to all of you that support the channel, that support the community. Please continuing subscribe the channel, continuing going of smashing that like button, um, and continuing spreading the love with your awesome comments and some of the nice emails that I received lately. And apparently, my good friend, it's natural, but my good friend Andrew last week was the top of the notch of the podcast. A lot of good comments regarding him, and I'm really glad because he deserves all the things that the world can give us in a good way, of course.
Very flattering. And yes, everybody out there listening and watching, thank you so much. You alone, each and every one of you, are the reason that we do this.
Yes, absolutely. Today we are recording a little bit early because it's almost summertime. It's going to be gorgeous outside. So this podcast, I think, is going to be very streamlined, and because we don't have much to cover, to be very honest. Usually, when this happen, we have the tendency to go a little bit more deeper, but it is what it is. I think it's time for us to roll and starting our podcast. What do you think, Andrew?
I think that we're live and unscripted every time. So
Absolutely.
let's uh, let's move right ahead.
Okay. So, welcome back, and let's start by jumping to the first update. The first update is the Azure Monitor Agent and data collection rules now in generally available. So, this is pretty good, I have to say, because now the AMA, the Azure Monitor Agent, okay, it comes together with the data collection rules to improve even more, okay, the data collection, and includes those granular and flexible configuration that you have, for example, for a single VM, single workspace, um, to report that back to log analytics, either multi-home, because this is about this, it's the evolution of the old scom agent, remember that.
Mhm.
I think it's the same name, but that's okay. That is a little detail apart,
It
but
is the same named agent still, just so you're. Yeah. I was working with it earlier this week with a client, and
yeah,
every it seems like every week we have a conversation about this somehow. I think it's because of all the Sentinel work with the
yes,
with the log collection, but it's really interesting, right?
yeah.
Because it's been a solid agent for such a long time, and they just keep adding features to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not only that, and we mentioned this last episode about the way that you can now on the agent, right, on the server to select those rules, right, to send it off
Mhm.
to the server. So we don't need to do that at the back end, in this case at Log Analytics, to see what we want to configure. Now we can configure this on agent, and now the agent and the data collection rule becomes available um, probably a week later. I have to double check, but
Well, that's usually about a week,
yeah, a
1 week
week or
early.
2 weeks. Yeah, I think it was that. Uh,
So I
no, it
did find
was
with
for
this
the
update.
syslog. Sorry, I was making it confused. It was the syslog events collection for the
Mm.
Azure Monitor Agent on
Oh, you're
Linux
right.
distros.
Yeah,
And
you're
that
right.
and that was the issue. Yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah, do remember that. Yeah, and I do like with this update that they've also thought about the security and compliance. So they're
absolutely.
really making sure that that HTTPS wrapper is using, for example, like TLS 1.2, and that it uses the current security standards, and that's going to be inherited from your subscription and your tenant. So there's very little that we have to do kind of going forward to maintain that kind of security. So it just becomes an inherited product of the tenant. Really good stuff. And the one thing that really did surprise me with this update is that it's available in all public regions where Azure Monitor is supported. So right out of the gate, it's available worldwide as long as Azure Monitor is in your region.
Yeah,
You have all of these new releases.
absolutely. Although there are some uh, Azure Monitor metrics as a destination that it's not in GA. They are still continuing in preview. Okay, we have to say, because not all of those rules in this case they are available in all of the destinations. Okay, uh,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I think it's pretty cool that Azure Monitor now becomes with, in this case, the DCR, the data collection rules, and now it becomes um, way more compact and way more like a one big agent that you can have those rules to collect at the source, and then makes all the data that you are importing and the data that you need to um, work with way more streamlined, which is better for you at the end, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think that just the fact alone that it comes with the new rules is really great.
Absolutely. Moving to the one that we are both excited. It's a new region, and we are
Hmm.
always kind of celebrating these at the show. at this podcast is new regions of Azure because they are growing. So our friends on the east, they already were announced in this case that they already have the East US 3, and
Hmm.
now our friends in the west, that where we are, right? We have a new
Absolutely.
data center that is, or not a new data center, a new region. I
Mm.
have to correct myself. That is the West US 3, okay? That is includes already the Azure availability zones. So means that you have more than one zone, more than one data center, and offers the portability of the Azure Resource Manager. Although this data center is special, right?
It is. So this one launched in this region is in Arizona,
Yeah.
and there's something that's very important to us, and also to Microsoft, of course, because it's definitely one of their goals. So this region has launched 100% sustainably from day one.
Day one.
And that is absolutely amazing.
Oh my God.
Really, definitely worth congratulations to all of the very hardworking folks that made that happen. It's not a small undertaking, and I think maybe a little bit strategic if we use some critical thinking here, launching this in Arizona because there's so much sun and in different kind of not necessarily desert, but very arid areas, solar power can be a real, actual usable option, right?
Yes.
And I don't know all of the things about what they've done to make this region sustainable, but I think that it's absolutely amazing. It's a very lofty goal. It's hard to do, and here they've achieved it with another region already.
Yes. So and we're starting to see a lot of this because this is one of the things that Microsoft announced, that all of the regions by, I don't remember what was the timeline,
I
to
think 2025 or
2025 or
20
2030, something like that.
2030, something like that. Yeah.
It was something like that around those timelines, that all in this case Microsoft operations will be carbon neutral, and will be even carbon what's the name,
All
carbon,
sustainable,
no,
right? Like
carbon
car-
negative,
yeah, like carbon negative, so they'll actually contribute
contribute
more
more,
than what they
consume,
consume.
yes. It's something like that. I think it's something like that, that we saw it, that they had, and this a very good example of that. So a lot of good things to happen for us on the west region, or on the west coast, let's call it this way. It's awesome because now we have three data centers, one in Washington, one in California, and now one in one in California, and now one in Arizona, right? That we can use for that. We should have one in West Canada.
Oh, it's been in my dreams,
Yes.
and that would be amazing. I know going down to Seattle and Washington for U.S. West is very common for Western Canada businesses. And it would be really, really cool if we had kind of Canada West or something like that. I know we have Central and East, so they've left the door open a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, just saying, the prairies, pretty amazing place, lots of sun.
Yes. Yes. Because if we're going to our friends in BC, they have a
Good luck
problem
with
with
your
water.
solar.
They have a lot of water there, and it's the prime. It's a prime real estate. So come to Alberta. In this case, we love you guys. Just a suggestion. We are not pressure anything. Our millions of
Absolutely.
fans. It's not that pressure. But come to the prairies. Come to the Alberta prairies. I'm sure that uh, we will all uh, appreciate that. Like
Oh, absolutely.
having a data center close here, I will definitely put express route, so I can have like the maximum of latency. like before thinking is already Azure processing, it should be awesome. I have to say.
Right. Yeah. And that is a real challenge that businesses have in Western Canada
It
is
is.
low latency, even with ExpressRoute.
Yes.
So
And it, because if you think correctly, this making, I know that Vancouver it's way bigger than, for example, in Calgary, right? Regarding West Canada, um, but it makes totally sense going more. Okay, for me, it makes way more sense coming to close to the prairies, for a lot of reasons. We have way more sun than them because they are way more overcast.
they're
For
quite
example,
overcast and rainy
yeah,
in kind of at least the southern BC and
y-
coastal BC. Yeah.
yeah, and they have a lot of water that they need to. So the land over there, it's not as vast as we have over here, right?
Mhm.
They
Yeah, real
are
estate's quite pricey
the real estate's quite
in the
pricey,
city areas, at least I know. Yeah.
and it's not only that. Is Vancouver, it's like 150 kilometers from Seattle. So they already have data center there.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
it
They could
does
reach more businesses. They could bring business Azure to small and medium businesses more accessibly in Western Canada,
yeah,
uh, and it would be not a huge challenge. As you know, you and I both have a little sustainable energy adventure in our personal lives, and
absolutely.
and certainly. It's a bit of work to get those things up and running, which is why I say it's huge kudos for launching the region US West 3. That's pretty awesome. But I think Alberta and Saskatchewan very good candidates for Canada West. Hopefully somebody is listening, consider it, put it in, brand it as your own idea. We're cool with that. Just build the data centers.
Exactly. We don't want any type of a swag like a mug with the new logo. Will be
I keep
highly
asking.
appreciating.
There was nothing in the mailbox
But
this week,
yes,
so
I have to double check my mailbox today, but I don't have nothing yet. But yeah, that's okay. Let's move on because we already deviate this too much. As usual. That's how this podcast goes.
it sure
Another
is.
virtual machine series. Okay,
Mhm.
now available in Australia. The DCS V2, it's now available in Australia. What an awesome thing! Because now the confidential computing arrived in this case for the DCS V2. It's a mouthful. It's now in Australia East, Australia Southeast will be launching very soon. Okay, to provide disaster recovery capabilities. So again, talking about a little bit of the specs, we're talking about the new, in this case, processor, Intel processor, the Coffee Lake, coffee, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm,
coffee and
absolutely.
lake together. So
Oh, I like the way this is sounding.
yes, coffee on the lake, probably. No, okay. Let's not going on that direction. Uh,
We're so sorry,
oh
everybody.
yes,
It's
yes.
too much sunshine. This happens if you've been with us for a while. If you're new,
If you do,
get used to it. That's just how we roll.
absolutely, absolutely. And if you don't like it, just tell us. Oh, you
Yeah,
guys
let us know.
are too funny.
Absolutely.
We want a little bit more serious. That's okay. No worries about it. But all of this is very good news for our mates in Australia.
Yeah, it really is. So confidential computing's been rolling out. It kind of started as a bit of a vertical, and I have to say, I have actually heard some different customers here and there starting to talk about it and wondering, hey, how can we take advantage of these confidential computing workloads? So we have privacy and security a little bit more guaranteed.
Yeah,
And businesses really like to hear those kinds of things, right? So I think that this is going to be a little bit more of a horizontal product as time goes on and less of just a vertical for like finance and healthcare and science industries, right?
yeah,
I think it's really going to help a lot of organizations and businesses to be able to grow their capabilities. And one of the things that, of course, public cloud excels at is things like in times of COVID, where research just explodes and needs huge amounts of compute and memory resources to calculate everything. All the medical research and the analysis of that. Public cloud, Azure cloud, is 100% spot on for this. And confidential computing, I feel like they may really take a huge chunk of the market for a lot of those needs.
Yeah,
Really awesome stuff.
absolutely. And on this post, right? They mentioned one thing that, funny enough, I starting to work on this week. That is deploying AKS for confidential containers. So it's
Hmm.
not only the computing, of course, that is confidential. Now you can raise that to support on the AKS for the confidential containers. So you are leveraging, because of the confidential computing, that now you have the integrity of your data and your code while you're running on and being processed on a public cloud by these, in this case, these types of virtual machines. But now, because this is a virtual machine and you can deploy containers, right, on the virtual machine, now you are extrapolating that confidential computing to the containers, and now you have confidential containers. So means that your application, right, doesn't you don't need to change too much your application if you already been deploying that on a container side, right, or containerize your application. Now you can leverage all of that potential of the containers, right, to have what's called now the confidential containers. And that's a very interesting way that we can put it. I think this will, like you mentioned, regarding uh, development and regarding research, will make all of those, um, like the least no, no, the higher resistors of going to the cloud, like for example the public, not the public, the healthcare, financial, and all of those type of verticals, to
Hmm.
easily moving to the cloud because of this. Because
Yeah, there's less resistance. It's more
yes,
accessible. They have less change that they have to do to get there.
it's not the problem. I don't think it's the problem of the resistance is not the problem with the change and getting there. It's a problem of compliance.
Yeah, well,
I
that's part of it, right? So when I think about resistance factors, compliance is a huge contributor,
Yes.
at least in my mind, in that category, because without it, those organizations can't do something else,
Yeah.
right? It has to be compliant with all of their rules.
Exactly. And it's like the secrecy that they have. If you are researching, for example, the new pharmaceutical, for example, whatever it is, kind of formula, or are you researching anything on that, the secrecy of those, it's a lot of intellectual property that you are developing, right? And you
It is.
need, in this case, something to protect it. Encryption, in this case, it's not only available for that, it will not only do that job. You need this confidential computing, because it's where the processing of all of the data is. So you are securing your environment way more than just by encrypting the data at rest or in transit, right? And that's the part that I think
So,
it's fundamental for those verticals that they're always complaining and always saying, "Oh yes, yes, when you have this, it's going to be okay," and all of that. So now they have less reasons to not using the public cloud to help them lower the costs, facilitate the deployment of all of those applications and all of those research, right? And makes all of this easier to use. And we, as the consumers, will get the benefit, because now we get faster products on the markets, right? And we have more secure way to just dealing with all of that data, right? That's the part that excites me the most with all of that information, right? Right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Moving to the next one, public preview on alert-based smart detection for application insight. Uh, this is again going back to what we talked about last episode on the alert-based smart detection on application insight that it was on public preview, and this becomes again, but with a small difference, right? So
Absolutely.
this one is the smart detection on Azure Application Monitor is automatically warns on your failures for your web application. Okay, the what we talked about last week, it was the um, I think it's the same. They made a mistake on this.
It seems the same to me. It might have moved from private preview to public preview because it is the second bar in the preview status before it goes GA, right?
Yes,
Um,
absolutely. You are
so
right.
I can't trust my memory, but
Yeah,
let's just take a guess. So this isn't necessarily new. What's new about it is that it is in public preview and that you can test it out. And one of the things kind of near the bottom of this little update, I think that's a bit of something to think about, is that users who choose not to migrate to the preview version of alerts-based smart detection can still continue to use Smart Detection Classic as you do today. In the preview period, the new application's insights resources will be created with Smart Migration and need to be explicitly migrated to alerts-based smart detection if that is desired in the future. So you don't have to do this today, but after it's released, there will be a specific migration path to move from the classic to the
absolutely.
modern features, and that's actually quite common. But I do like how they're kind of calling it out and saying, "Hey, just so you're aware, if you don't do this as part of the new process, you're going to have a different process to upgrade on the classic side."
Okay. No, exactly like that. And application insight is one of the things that I like about the most. And not only application insight, the insights part of it. You have insights for VMs, you have insights for application, you have insights for a lot of those. And it's
Hmm.
it's really interesting because this morning I was delivering a workshop, a security workshop, for example, and I was um, exploring to say that these insights, it will help you in this case to see what is connecting, what type of connections you have, and I remember I just picked, for example, a totally random DC, and we discovered that someone unauthentic was trying to connect the DC online, and then it was saying that, wow, this is really interesting. I say, oops, probably I poked something wrong. And I
I know,
discovered that
and it's
something that I shouldn't.
isn't it interesting though? It never ceases to amaze me. Every new security workshop, every new like security assessment client that we both go into, there always seems to be something that even a well equipped and really dedicated and hardworking security team, we find something new
Yeah,
every time. Absolutely every time. I just think I know no, I don't get a residual for it. I wish, but I really think that the Microsoft security tool sets that we get to deliver, especially in those workshops, are very helpful for our customers. Yeah,
yeah,
a lot of insights. It's not restricted to just application, right? I wish they would kind of rename that a little bit because there's so much more to it than just app insights, right?
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And that's the part that is really interesting on the on all of those type of things. That is it's cool about all of this, right? It it
It really
it
is.
really
It
is.
really is.
It is. But that's okay. Let's move on for the next one. And the next one, it's kind of outside of our realm, but at the same time it's very interesting. and I have to say that I'm going to test this because it's the Azure Data Lake Storage static website is now general availability. So what does
Hmm.
that mean? Azure Data Lake Storage is nothing more than a storage account. Okay, uh, so let's be honest. This is a storage account that usually is being used to or for Data Lake to just dump everything there, right? And you dump everything there, and then you have Data Lake that you're going, and it's a kind of it's short version. It correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, uh, it's more like a ETL process that you dump everything there on Data Lake, and now you have all of those uh, uh, um, tools that you can connect to Data Lake to just kind of transform the data and basically spit out on whatever you want mechanism or database that you want to use it, and usually use this. But Data Lake has been a lot of movements, parts, and a lot of
Hmm.
improvements. One of them, it makes in this case the storage account that we always know on the version 2. So now we have the Azure Data Lake Storage version, right? That is the Gen 2 that makes, in this case, the storage account come to the version 2. That is the version that we're talking about. But now what you can do is with files there, you can create a static website to accessing those. So means that if you want to create a static website from a storage account, and using all of the things that a storage account gives you, right? With hot tier, cold tier, all of the replication, whatever it is that you have, you can have a static website. And look at this, geo-redundant, okay,
Hmm.
using all the services that you want to have with, for example, traffic manager, for example, with um, a lot of other services that makes all of that available. And when that region is not available, and by default, if you're doing geo redundant, right, of your storage, you have 6 copies. So making that 3 copies on one region, 3 copies on the other one, and you can even make these geo-redundant read only. So makes that you have one that updates the main region, and the other one it's read only. And again, this is for a static website, so you don't expect to have too much change. Now you can have basically a website that is on 2 different regions, very easily to maintain, very easily to do it, and fast as hell.
Very fast. Yeah, that's right.
So it's like, wow, it's just that's why I want to bring this, because I want to explore that. um I want to try to see what it can do, because a lot of those websites, it's so static, right? That
Hmm.
the it's there. We don't need more. Like, I see that for a lot of those corporate websites, it's very simple to do. I see a lot of organizations using, for example, CDN as well, to just expand that the website that is static and using, and they are making this so easy to do it, okay, and enable, and all of this that I'm talking about. That's the part that excites me the most. Is free.
Yeah, and I just want to point out also how hard it is to get your content into Data Lake to use with your static website. You can use CLI,
Yeah.
my very close and personal friend PowerShell module,
Hmm.
easy copy.
Hmm.
You can use Storage Explorer if you prefer a graphical interface. You can use Azure Pipelines as well,
Yeah.
which is kind of, they tuck it down a little bit. I know it's alphabetical, but I feel like that one might be, closer to the top. And then Visual Studio Code extension for Data Lake as well.
Yeah.
So it's really hard. It's very restrictive to, no, it's quite the opposite, of course, right? I was just thinking, maybe they can't see my facial expression when they're listening to an audio podcast.
No, they can't. They can't. But I was expecting that. Let's say when you're going on that, because I know that's easy. Because that's the beauty of all of this. Is
It
this
is.
and using the storage account of Data Lake? That's the beauty of it. So like Storage Explorer, it's a tool that you can do it. That you can do drag and drop. Simple as that, and then synchronize everything and done. Your website is updated. Everything is updated. Done. You can even use, like for example, like you mentioned, that is the thing that I'm doing. For example, for my websites is the CI/CD, because it's really easy. I use Markdown, for example, for a lot of that, and then basically I just doing the git push, done. I
Exactly.
don't need to care anything else. It's always been deploying on the same way. It's always been deploying on that. We have, in this case, all of those um, slots. So even if I want to test the slot, I can test it before going to production. Or if you don't, it just swap the slot for you when you finish the deployment. Swap the slot, and now you have everything back to online, without even downtime or anyone noticing what you have been doing at the back
Exactly.
end. So it's pretty cool. That's why I want to bring this up, because that is awesome to have that type of functionality, and especially user storage accounts. Okay, I have to say that this already exists on the other public cloud as well.
It
We
does.
still have this for a long time. Okay, so it's not like this is brand new in Azure that you can have a static website. But
No,
uh,
Azure Static Sites has been around for quite a while, right?
but you could have a static website from a storage account, right?
Hmm.
You are not leveraging is the data lake. That
Exactly.
that is the difference.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's the new twist
the
on
new
this, right?
twist on this, because you could use that with the normal storage account, and that is the biggest twist on this, that I want to reinforce, so everyone to listen, to say, but we have this for a long time. Why these
Mhm.
crazy guys are coming with this right now? No, this is for data lake. It's a totally different monster regarding the storage and regarding how you just handling the information and all of that. So bear in mind with that, okay? But bear in mind with that. Moving to the next one, we have general availability for maintenance control, virtual machine, scale set, OS, image upgrades. Woo!
Mhm.
I
That's a
was.
mouthful, but that's actually a really good update, right?
It is, because right now you can automatically upgrade your OS in your virtual machine, okay, without losing or having, in this case, the control functionality and ability to do that automatically. So the rollout across regions is way more a phased manner that you can safely deploy all of those images, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and it's fully integrated with all of the native Azure tools, so Azure Monitor and the health integration, and of course, like you say, it's following all of the Microsoft kind of what do they call them? It's not the safe deployment, or is it?
It is.
It is. It is safe
It is
deployment,
safe
right?
deployment. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a bit of just a guideline or a framework on this is the most likely safest way to do an OS deployment
Yeah.
when we're doing upgrades, especially in scale sets.
Yeah.
We just have to be thoughtful and plan it out
Yeah.
so that we don't impact production, for example, right?
Yeah.
So,
No, absolutely. And just to go a little bit back on this, for example, virtual machine scale sets, they are nothing more than a virtual machine, as the name says, but usually you don't have access to the OS. Okay. And they are exactly the same. So it's a kind of a way, for example, when you deploy Azure Kubernetes service, you are deploying a virtual machine scale set. Okay,
That's
so
correct.
that is where your Kubernetes is going to land, is on the virtual machine scale set. Because if you need another host, if you need to grow your AKS, what are you going to do? Is going to auto scale that virtual machine. Okay, so it's going to add more nodes into, in not in this case container nodes or pods in this case, right? But it will create more pods, it will create more nodes as well. So when you upgrading those OS images, right, usually you need to do it on a way that is going to be streamlined, it's going to be safe deployment. Usually when we're doing that, you are in this case draining all of the pods and all of the nodes that you have on AKS to the other VMs, so you can update that. That's what they call the safe deployment, right? And then when everything it's back to normal and is verified, now you are moving to the second node, so you drain that node for to the other ones, and now you have the new one, so on and so forth. But this is really important to understand, because virtual machine scale set is not the same way that you have a virtual machine, okay, on the availability set. It's totally
Different things
different
completely. Yeah.
things, right? Because
Yeah.
this
But yeah, there
involves
is often some confusion
it.
around that,
It
right?
does.
Availability sets, scale sets,
Yeah,
geo redundancies, things like that. Like it does get confusing.
it does.
But, without diving too deep into, I love the masterclass. I love when we do get in this conversation. I consider when you talk about this to be a bit of a masterclass. Um, just being honest, because you do have a very good depth of knowledge when it comes to how to explain this to everybody, right? Because not everybody gets to work with like geo-redundant availability sets and things like that, right?
Yes,
And there can be some complexity to it, and especially when it comes to updating.
absolutely.
So yeah, just understand there's a few differences between how things are set up, but scale sets means just that. It allows your VM to scale.
Absolutely. And that's the part that is important to make sense, because um a lot of the things that I was mentioning is some of the things that I hear that with this, when you create a virtual machine scale set, first, it's not the same way that you create a virtual machine. It's not because the virtual machine on the name it will make everything almost the same, because the virtual machine scale set, for example, it will come with a load balancer, it will come with sometimes, depending on how you want to implement, with application gateway. uh, on a virtual machine, when you create it, doesn't come with that. Yes, you can add a virtual machine in this case to um, a load balancer, but it's not a scale set, so it's not part of that group of machines, part of that cluster. It's like more, I usually like to explain this, that virtual machines scale set is a cluster of virtual machines, right? They belong to the same identity of that cluster. So they are belong to a cluster, let's call it this way. And the virtual machine that you are adding, in this case, independently to a load balancer, doesn't belong to a cluster. Just have a load balancer is totally independent. So you can update one virtual machine without any problems from the other one. You will have different experience, but in this case, on the virtual machine scale set, you need to be on the same version. Otherwise, it will crash completely the virtual machine scale set.
Yeah, yeah. It might do something, but it won't be what you want it to do.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's for sure.
And that's okay. You can always call us after. We are available. Okay, me and Andrew. I have to say that we love the free part over here, but that call, it will not be. We will give you something as a good citizens, right? Advice and all of that. But if you really want us to look at that, it comes with a premium price,
Definitely,
like
especially
ultra
after you've
discs.
been warned.
Yes, like the ultra discs. Remember?
Absolutely. Yes, the first one's free, folks. That's right. We get you hooked and then you come back for more support.
Oh my God, this is
Oh,
go down the
yes.
road so easily between two of us.
Oh, daylight. Oh, my mortal enemy. I know.
Yes, let's move to the next one.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a really good one, right? We did talk about this one before we pressed the magic record button because it's a little bit outside our area, but at the same time, it's kind of inside the area because we often talk about SAP HANA,
yeah,
and certainly pretty much anything on an Azure VM is sort of a little bit more interesting to us, right?
absolutely. And this is really interesting because if you are familiar with SAP HANA, right? SAP HANA, it's a beast. Okay, first of all, because usually it's terabytes, or not terabytes, but usually it's a lot of gigabytes of memory that you
Some
have.
cases.
Some cases terabytes, yeah. And first of all, doing a disaster recovery of that, it's not that simple because a lot of those databases, one of specifically, and SQL is about the same, but especially SAP HANA, you put the most entire database on memory. That's
Yep.
where the performance of SAP HANA is. Of course, that to put the database on memory, you need the to have the fast, in this case, disks and all of that, and um, because it's SAP and SAP in this case, you need to be compliant with that. So only a few VMs are certified by SAP, and all of that. But be able to now in production, be able to cross region the restore of this makes this one of more appealing areas to deploy SAP HANA and SQL
Hmm.
in the entire world.
Exactly. And we did talk about this very update
Yeah.
when it hit preview. And we issued a very, very careful warning like, hey, this is very exciting, but remember, it is preview.
Yes.
Now, finally, I want to say it's been quite a few weeks, like maybe 4 weeks or more.
Yeah.
Um, and now it's
Yeah.
generally available. Oh my gosh. And it's really exciting because, like you say, this means businesses can have geographic redundancy and restore capabilities now with SAP HANA workloads. Super, super critical, especially because when an organization has already invested into SAP and they have reached the point where they need to have geographic redundancy for their SAP workloads. SAP HANA is really that framework and the database and like the certification process. It's very rigorous, and Microsoft has done an amazing job
Yeah.
of making available different products that can handle that SAP HANA workload. And the geographic redundancy and restore to a different region, that is so huge. That's like the part of a whole business continuity and disaster recovery plan, right?
It is, but there is a feature that is hidden over here,
Hmm.
that it's for me and for this. That's why I'm saying this is one of the reasons that it's one of the most appetite environments to run SAP HANA is Azure, because when you enable this, right? When you enable the Azure backup cross region restore, the CRR,
Hmm.
and when in this case the data is already on the secondary region, it's accessible. Okay, it's available for you to for you even to uh, self recovery if you want. Okay, it's accessible on the pair region during plan and unplan, but you can also use this to usually test your environment or test your, for example, without impacting on production, testing your disaster recovery, testing your unplanned incidents, and makes everything way more efficient. Because imagine this: you are upgrading the SAP or the SAP HANA to a new version, and you want to see what is that impact is on your environment, on your production
Mhm.
environment. What a better way to do this if you have this enabled, okay? You have the real data there, you have the real deal there, okay? And you just self restore this to a location, to a bubble, to isolated area, whatever it is, and you produce that test on that environment. Done there, available there, it's there. And now you can have absolutely sure that when you roll out that to the production environment, to the main region, is already been tested on almost the same, if it's not the same, database and all the same conditions, right? So it makes you way more, it's not resilient, but way more prepared for the outcome of this, because I've been on some SAP's upgrades, and oh my god, when we press the button and say go, we are all shaking in, and that's where every single one, even if you are not religious, you are becoming close to religion, because you want to praise to God to please not making anything goes wrong.
Absolutely, and that really highlights a lot of the practices that we should be using around backup and restore, right? So we should be having planned recoveries where we're
Absolutely.
testing and making sure that the data is accessible. So, you talked about a little bit there with, when we're testing an upgrade, we want to test the new software. How does it impact on the data? All those things. And I think of it, the same way, but also in terms of, I think the saying goes that your backup is only as good as your last restore.
It is the
So
only way, to test the backup. Even if
exactly,
you have all of those checks, even if you have all of those controls that you are enabling to just check whatever you want to check, the size, whatever it is that you want to check, is the only way to have 100% secure that your backup is done correctly, is by restoring it. There is no other way.
absolutely. Yep, and you're absolutely right, because it has to be validated. There has to be test restores,
Yeah.
and ideally, I really love to see when customers have they like pull out like a binder or a OneNote or something, and they say, "Yeah, here you go, Andrew. This is our playbook on if everything goes all upside down and we have a terrible day. This is our playbook to get back to business and get everything working again."
Yeah.
So when your plan gets to the point with your organization where you have a playbook that you can just execute, now you can actually start to automate that as well, right? So uh, just some food for thought, really, food for thought.
It is. It is nothing more than that. Nothing more than that. But with this, unfortunately, we come to the end of our podcast this week. So I know that's a sad moment. Please don't cry for me, Argentina. But but but
He always blames me for the daylight, folks, but
but no, no, I don't blame you. I blame the daylight. Not blaming it. It elevates our spirits. Let's call it this way.
right.
Right? Exactly. So we come to the end of our podcast. Thank you very much for everyone that uh, just subscribe our channel. If you don't, and if you are new, um, don't forget to do that. Um, giving some love, either from smashing that like button, or putting some comments, or sending an email, or sending a tweet. or sending a private message, depending. We want to hear from you. That's the thing that we apply, or that we ask you guys to do it, and keep coming with all of those good comments. Um, uh, all of that. That's what we want to hear, right, Andrew? Um,
Absolutely.
have a wonderful week. Don't forget to deploy in Azure, not in preview, please, because yeah, it's not correct to do that way. But
Well,
having
not for production.
not for production exactly. So use that. Use on your consens and good sense in this case. So thank you, Andrew, one more time, and I hope I can see you next week. Bye.